So my talk today is From Belief to Embodiment, Living Your Spiritual Truth. So I want you to close your eyes just for a second. I want you to imagine two versions of yourself. The first is you, as you are right now. And the second is you living in perfect alignment with your highest spiritual truth. Now, what's the difference between these two versions? And what would it take to bridge that gap? So open your eyes. That gap is exactly what I'm here to talk about today. Between who you are now and who you know yourself to be, the potential that lies within. Ernest Holmes, who's the founder of Centers for Spiritual Living, it used to be called Religious Science, just so you know, but it's now called Centers for Spiritual Living. And he said that the divine plan is one of freedom. The divine plan is one of freedom. Bondage is not God ordained. Bondage is not God ordained. But how many of us truly live in freedom? Now, I know maybe some of you might have been brought up in a religion where that's not the same God you were taught. Maybe you were taught, like me, that God was a vicious God who had certain rules, and if you didn't abide by them, you'd be spited and, thrown to hell. And that does not sound like freedom to me. So I want to invite you to consider that God is a synonym for freedom. And when you are in most alignment with the Infinite One, you experience complete freedom. Now, I don't know about you, but I might have put myself in bondage because of my own limiting beliefs and thoughts. I grew up, I had society taught me ways of being. There's cultural things that I've learned. My family has its own way of being. There's ideas that were implanted in me because of my family, my history. Even my country has implanted different things in me that have caused me to limit myself and where I have limiting beliefs. The good news is that we actually have a class called Beyond Limits, and we teach techniques and tools for you to transform those beliefs. If you haven't taken it yet, it's coming right up. But good news is on that is I'm actually going to teach you some of that today. Yay! Now, some of you may think, well, you know what? I really do want to be in alignment with my highest spiritual truth, but I'm just too old. I've heard people tell me that. I'm just too old to express. There's too much. It's long gone. I had this idea. Now it's too late for me. I looked up a couple of people, famous people, who started their full expression later in life. Just so you know, Colonel Sanders, who founded Kentucky Fried Chicken, he was age 65 when he started that. Julia Child, she published her very first cookbook at age 49. Grandma Moses started painting seriously in her 70s. Samuel Jackson was in a lot of small roles, but he didn't make it big until Pulp Fiction, which he was 46 years old. So no matter who you are or whatever stage of life you are at, there's still hope for you. It's still possible. And I wonder how many of us are in alignment with who we profess to be. How many of us are in alignment with who we profess to be? For instance, I am a being of love. And yet in traffic, I curse the person who cut me off. And that politician, oh man, they should get it. I am a generous person. Yet I give more to my coffee habit than I do to my spiritual community. I believe in work-life balance. Yet when I get a cold, I still go into work. Two of these examples are who I used to be, and one of them is still prevalent today for me. I'll let you know later on one of them. But I'm not here to shame or blame you. I'm not here to shame or blame you. I just want you to know that it's good to think about these things. It's good to self-reflect, to recognize where we're at, where we could be, and to know that it's possible to get from here to the embodiment, to the fullness of who you know yourself to be. It's not only possible, it's probable if you're willing to do just a couple of simple things. I want to invite you to consider being in integrity and alignment with who you know yourself to be. I love those words. So integrity, it comes from the Latin word integratas, which means wholeness or completeness. It's derived from the adjective integer, which means whole or complete. And it suggests that a person of integrity is whole or complete in their character. They're not divided, they're not corrupted. They maintain their wholeness of who they are. It means consistency between one's values and their actions. Alignment. Alignment comes from the French word alignment. I'm sure it's pronounced in French in some way, but it's spelled almost the same way. So, but it comes from the verb aligner, means to line up. Aligner is composed of a, which means two, and linge, which is line, ultimately from the Latin linea, which means a linen thread, a string, or a line. And mint means, the suffix mint means action. So it gives us a visual metaphor to line up, to line things up, things arranged in a line. So for integrity, the root meaning of wholeness or completeness reinforms the idea that integrity means consistency, coherence. Our words match our actions. When I say I'm going to do something, I do that thing. For alignment, the idea of putting things in a row, of lining it up, it means that I am arranging my behavior to what I believe. My behavior is consistent with who I say I am. So I was like you. I was, 20, 24 years ago, sitting in the chairs just like you, Center for Spiritual Living San Jose. And David Bruner was my minister at the time. And he was given a talk on integrity. And he said, do you act and take actions in the way you profess yourself to be? So he asked us to go home and look at our bank statement. And your bank statement will tell you what your priorities are. What's important to you? When I went home and looked at my bank statement, I noticed that I had a bigger priority for food and coffee over my spiritual learning and my spiritual community. So that was me in the past. And I realized I said, oh, my spiritual experience is important to me, my community is important to me, but I was not practicing that. I wasn't in alignment with what I was professing. And so I'm not using that story to shame or blame. I'm just using that as an example of like, look at yourself. Look at what you spend money on. Everything you spend money on is a vote for that thing. What do you say your values are? What do you say your priorities are? And are you actually in alignment with those things? And if you are, you'll notice it's reflected in your bank account. It's reflected at where do you put your money? Where do you put your time? Where do you put your effort? What actions are you doing that are in alignment with that truth? Now, I wasn't in alignment, and so I shifted things. I started tithing, and things shifted. I started going to classes and spending money on my own spiritual enrichment. And amazing, I have had so much deeper connection and revelation and abundance that I didn't even know was possible because I had limiting beliefs when I was growing up that I didn't have enough. And it was impossible to do this thing. It was impossible for me to buy a house. It was impossible for me to, I don't know, actually way back then, like have 4 new tires on my car. I drove around with a donut for like 100 miles until my dad felt bad for me and gave me money to buy a new tire. But now things have shifted because I am in alignment. I'm in integrity. Now, there's always more work to be done for me. I'm always growing and expanding into that fuller, freer vision of myself. There's so much more possible. There's no end to the good that's possible. So I wonder, what's an area in your life where you feel a disconnect between your spiritual belief system and your daily experience? The key to bridging this gap is what psychologists call cognitive dissonance. It's a discomfort when we feel like our actions don't line up with our beliefs. And it can be a powerful catalyst to change. For me, authenticity is a huge, important expression for me. And when I was in high school, I didn't even know myself, I'll say, when I was in high school. I didn't know myself. And I found this out about myself because I was in Girl Scouts. And in my Girl Scout troop, we went on a trip, and all of the girls were boy crazy. They were all boy crazy, and they all had romance novels that they were reading secretly. And then they were like, oh my God, listen to this steamy sex scene. And it wasn't steamy for me. It took me a little while to get that I was a same gender loving woman, and I wasn't excited about that. And I didn't line up with how these girls were behaving. And I didn't even understand it until I figured it out. And once I figured it out and I started acting in alignment with the truth of my being, things started getting a lot easier for me. Now, it's not easy to come out in a society where that isn't necessarily always accepted. And I feel so much better about myself because I'm not lying everywhere I go. You know, I tell people that I have a wife. I tell people that, I have a healthy relationship. And it just, I feel inside of myself that alignment, and it helps me to be more of who I came here to be. And it may be you're feeling that because you're an artist. Or maybe you're a practitioner. And you haven't said yes yet because you love to pray. So there's something inside each and every one of us that is seeking to express in this life, that's seeking to come out. And there's a place everywhere where you belong. You belong here. You belong in community. You belong in a place where we can work with each other to see the gifts that we bring. It's like, toddlers, how they have the little, a square peg. They're trying to put it in the round hole and it doesn't fit in the round hole. Well, there's a square hole where it fits. There's a place where everybody fits. And just because you're a square or a triangle or a circle, it doesn't mean that you don't belong. It means that there's a place where your own essence is here to express in the world. It's needed. It's of value. It's important that you come into alignment with your spiritual truth because we need you. Now, I have a little exercise for you to do. I want to say here, Joe Dispenza, he's a neuroscientist, and he does all these tests on this very thing I'm talking about. He does all these tests. He has huge workshops, and he has people connected like neurons. They're not neurons. Well, they're connected to their neurons. I don't know what that's called, but they have things connected to people's brains as he does these exercises. And he monitors the brain's responses to different exercises. And what he says is that consistent mental visualization can actually rewire our brains, creating new neural pathways that support our desired state of being. He says the neurons that fire together wire together. And in Beyond Limits, we teach, just like if you were looking at a grassy field and a deer runs through the grassy field, it doesn't do much, it tramples the grass a little bit, but if the deer runs by and then his whole family comes by over and over, there becomes a trail. And so that visualization is what happens in our brains. It's like as we keep thinking these things over and over and over again, we get these neuropathway superhighways in our brain that all of a sudden become subconscious because we've been thinking a certain way for so long, and then we just operate off of them. And oftentimes when we were kids, a lot of those pathways were brought up in certain ways. Habits, ways of being, unhealthy ways of being. But the good news is it can shift and change easily and effortlessly. That's the good news. So we're going to do a little exercise. What I want you to do is just close your eyes. And I want you to bring to your consciousness, a quality you wish to embody more fully. A quality you wish to embody more fully. So maybe it's love, maybe it's peace, maybe it's abundance. Now you may notice some kind of resistance or maybe a thought that says, oh no. And what I want you to do is to give that thought, that resistance or a block you're noticing, I want you to give it to God. And recognize that God is a place of freedom. And so it happily can take that off your plate and transform it into something else. So just imagine that open sense of freedom because you've given this to the universe, given it to God or Source, you've given up, released that. And now imagine yourself fully embodying this quality. What does it feel like in your body? Imagine that quality growing even bigger, expressing even fuller. And as you embody that, how do you move? How do you speak? Let yourself experience it. And now slowly open your eyes. That is it. What did that take, like 3 minutes? That moment rewired your brain to be in alignment with your truth. And something has shifted in you because of it. Now imagine if you did that every day. Imagine if you did that spiritual practice 3 minutes every day. You're rewiring your brain to the truth of your being that you already know yourself to be because you could feel it. It's already there, seeking to express itself fully as you. That's the good news. And the great news is you can rewire your brain. And so you are in alignment with that truth. It reminds me of autopilot on an airplane. So when airplanes fly, they put in the calculations to where it's supposed to go, and they put autopilot on. Now the plane, according to winds or weather or whatever, it shifts like 1 degree off, and autopilot brings it back. Then it shifts 1 degree off, and autopilot brings it back. And so a plane doesn't fly completely in one line. It actually kind of goes like this. But the autopilot recenters it. And that's what that little practice can do for you. It's just a little tiny thing, but it can recenter you to be in that expression, in that action of alignment of who you know yourself to be. So consider, what did you notice during the exercise? How might that impact your daily life? And what other spiritual practices could you engage in? See, spiritual practice doesn't have to be hard. You don't need to sit on a mat for an hour in silence meditating. And if you do, God bless you. Because I don't. But it's really easy and simple. And you can put a little alarm on your phone and have it a little reminder every day. The other thing I wanted to remind you about is that there's an ecosystem that happens with embodiment. And I was taking a class from Tracy Brown. She's a practitioner from Center for Spiritual Living Dallas. She does a lot of trainings around the country, and we had her here, and it was my honor to take the class from her. And she did a class from Namaste to Ubuntu. And I really want to focus on this concept of Ubuntu, because it's a practice that is one that the Zulu tribes in Africa practice. And it means, I am because we are. I am because we are. Which means I grow because of you. My expression is to give to you. And every single person in the tribe has that as their own way of beingness in the world. And it's beautiful because it's what we try and teach here. Our embodiment can be so much more powerful if we do it in community. And we share our gifts with each other. And we support each other. Because the consciousness of a group of people is way more powerful than the consciousness of one person. So if you're interested in thriving in prosperity and you're in the money mastery class, like, you're already part of a huge consciousness of 200 people around the world who are interested in opening to that expression of abundance that already is contained within each and every one of us. Because God is ever present in abundance is also a synonym for God. Power, love, grace, peace, all of those aspects. God is omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient. It knew how to create everything, and it is creating everything simultaneously right now, and it's happening in and through each and every one of us. And we have the power to access that at any time. You don't even have to come into the center on Sunday. It is wherever you are. If you're on the beach, if you're in nature, if you're in your family situations that are coming up as the holidays are coming up, the ever-presence, the all-powerful, almighty, great Creator is here within each and every one of us if we choose to access it. But what I love about this idea of Ubuntu is that our individual growth and embodiment actually doesn't happen in isolation. That we are all part of a larger ecosystem of humanity. We're interconnected. The Ubuntu philosophy teaches us that we're interconnected with others, that our efforts to embody these spiritual truths ripple out to others. And your efforts of embodying spiritual truths ripple out to me. And they compound each other. And so we can access and have transformations and what we call miracles quicker and easier because we're together in a united consciousness. It means that we collectively grow together, that as I grow and I step into that, I am a catalyst for the community to grow. And as you grow, you're a catalyst for the community to grow. It also teaches this idea of responsibility towards others, not just for my own growth, but creating an environment that supports other people to grow. Ask yourself this question: how is my spiritual practice benefiting others? Or how can I create more opportunities for collective growth in my community? Or how can I tap into the collective growth opportunities that are already happening in my community so I can expand and allow that multiplication effect to happen? Not only in my life, but the lives of everybody. We have a morning prayer that happens every day with Reverend Jerry at 7 a.m., and everybody comes together in collective consciousness for prayer. We have a Monday meditation that happens every Monday evening that the practitioners run. All of these are online. These are all things that you online and you here in person, you can tap into. We have classes that are hybrid. We have classes that are online. Whenever you're in a collective group of people that are in alignment, it's like all the oars on the boat go in the same direction, and you move the whole thing together collectively. And that's what we're here to be and express. Your embodiment of spiritual truth doesn't just change you, it has the power to uplift an entire community. They actually did a study in the journal Nature Communications that showed that positive behaviors and attitudes actually can spread through social networks, creating what is called a contagion of cooperation. That's what we're here to be. We're here to be that kind of contagion. There's a story in the Jewish tradition where a rabbi asked his students, how can we determine the hour of dawn, where the night ends and the day begins? And one student said, well, I think it's when you can actually, off in the distance, determine if it's a sheep or a dog out in the distance. And the rabbi said, no, that's not it. And another student said, maybe it's when you could tell the difference between a fig tree and a grapevine. And the rabbi said, no, that's not either. So the student said, well, what is that? What is the answer? And he said, it is dawn when you look into the face of another human being and you have enough light to recognize them as your brother or sister. You recognize them as your family. Until then, it is still night. So that shows that our spiritual growth is intimately connected to each other. And I need to see in you that expression. And when I recognize it, I recognize the God in me. And that's what namaste means, by the way. So I invite you this week to take yourself on, to be in action. Maybe look at your bank account, maybe not. But I do encourage you to choose one spiritual principle that you want to embody, one aspect that you want to embody more fully, and spend 3 minutes a day doing that visualization we just did. Very simple, very easy. If you don't do well doing things on your own, I want you to know I have an app that I use, Insight Timer. I did not get paid by them, but I use the app Insight Timer, and it has guided visualizations that are very short, that are very powerful and helpful as well. Or you could just re-listen to the service, whatever you want. Send it to a friend. I don't know. I also encourage you to keep a daily journal of recognizing when you've successfully embodied that principle, that aspect. When you see yourself acting in alignment, celebrate yourself. Have a celebration journal. And share your experiences with at least one other person. Get an accountability buddy. You can check in once a week, once a month. Just find somebody else. Grab a friend. Ask them to help you out. I was watching this YouTube video of Trevor Noah and Simon Sinek, and they were talking about the importance of friendship. Like the thing that can change the world is friendship, because loneliness and isolation is at a huge epidemic right now. And he said, the way to build trust and create friendships is to ask for help. Now, I don't know about you, but that seems a little counterintuitive to what I was taught. You mean I have to ask for help to build trust and friendships? Boy, is that uncomfortable. But when somebody feels like they can support you and they step into that, it builds trust for them. So I encourage you to think about asking for an accountability buddy. Ask for help on this journey. Know that we are here as a community to collectively support each other. And it's not just done by me. You know, I can do this talk to myself alone just fine. But it's you that make this a community. You're the one who makes the difference. And I am because we are. Let's pray. I recognize and know that infinite potentiality, the omniscient, almighty, all-knowing, all-loving wisdom of the universe is expressing itself in and through and around me. It is guiding me into that fuller, freer expression of myself. That I came here to be a being of love. I came here to express joy. I came here to be a creative avenue in this universe. And that creativity comes from the words, the writings, the meditations of my heart, the love that I express. And I recognize and know that today is the perfect day. Because it is a day that the infinite universe has created for my good, and I claim it now on behalf of myself and on behalf of this community right here and right now. I know that something has shifted within us so that we awaken to that broader sense, that interconnectedness of who we are. And that the actions of alignment and integrity, so I can be that place where I know myself to be, are blatantly clear to me. And I know that the infinite universe knows how to make them blatantly clear, easy, and effortless, the path of joy and love for each and every one of us, in a way that speaks to us individually so we get it. And I know that I don't have to figure that out, because the infinite universe already knows how to do it all. And so I just surrender into that deep and abiding knowledge knowing that it is guiding me on the next step, keeping me centered, on track, in alignment, in absolute coherence with the truth of who I know myself to be. As I claim that for myself, I claim that for each and every person here, each and every person listening online, each and every person around the world who is saying yes to their inner knowing that they were here created to be that expression on this planet right here and right now. As I know this truth on behalf of everybody, I am deeply grateful for this time, for this love, for this music, for this revelation. I am deeply grateful to know that all is well, and it continues to get better and better and better. And for that I'm grateful, and so it is.